Welcome to Grace Among Us, the podcast where we unearth the many faces and places of grace and share stories of the power of grace in our human lives. Our desire is that this will inspire you to see grace in your own life and share it with others.
Welcome to everybody listening. We're so glad you're here. As always, if you ever have a question about grace, post it in a comment, reach out to us. The format is that we come up with a question or two about grace. We do not pre-plan what we're going to say, and we just let it come. So as we got together right before this podcast, we have a chat before, and it's usually about life and what's going on and just kind of settling in, because as you can see, we don't live right next to each other.
Right.
So it's kind of like, hey, you, it's me, la la la. And the topic came up of controlled burning or prescribed burning. And it just kind of pulled through to what we're going to talk about today. So that's how, grace comes in all kinds of forms. And today came in the form of a conversation about controlled burns. So, Ebony, I know you have, I'm going to hand it over to you for a minute or more.
Sure. So I've been looking at this whole control burn thing because I'm a big geography, National Geographic, nature kind of nerd. And something very bizarre happened a week or two ago. A tropical storm hit the coast of California, Southern California. Didn't get a lot of news or press, but it was in an area that had a lot of fires. And they had been really having a difficult time controlling it. So they were doing some controlled burning. It was working. And then this storm comes and settles things. And it does not pose the threat that a typical storm would pose. It actually makes things better. And it got me thinking, what happens when the storm is prescribed, when the storm is to control the fire, the raging fire? What happens when the more fire, the controlled burn, is used to control the fire? And how do you know the difference? And I got really excited thinking about it, Carrie. Super excited, because I thought, oh my goodness, it was like a light bulb moment. Because when you're under the stress and pressures of life and life is getting really lifey, sometimes it feels like, what more? Like, it's just stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff. And what if some of that stuff that's layering on top is the controlled burn? So right before we got on the call, I Googled controlled burn. And the National Geographic.org definition is: controlled burning, also known as prescribed burning, involves setting planned fires to maintain the health of a forest. These burns are scheduled for a time when the fire will not pose a threat to the public or to fire managers. So they're planned to maintain the health. A fire is planned to maintain the health. And they're at an appointed time. The timing of them is super important, so that it does not pose a threat to the people in charge of the burn. Like, so maybe I'm just nerding out here, but I got pretty stoked in reading that, because to me that says, hey, God is going to do some things in my life, in your life, in our lives, that's going to feel pretty hot, pretty heated, pretty bad. It's going to look like more of the same, but it's prescribed to maintain the health. Maintain, meaning there's already a level of health that's being acknowledged, right? It's going to maintain the health of me. And it has to be at this particular time that it's being prescribed, so that it does not pose a threat. So the fire that I go through today, that looks like the same fire I went through cyclically a year ago or a year before, it had to be at this time. Because if I had gone through the exact same fire, even though it feels like it, it's not. It might have posed a threat to me. And I just thought grace all over. That felt real gracey to me. Yeah, it felt really, really, really Gracie.
I love it. It's Gracie.
It is
Yes.
real Gracie, and I'm gonna hush because I feel like I'm smiling like a fool right now because I'm so excited about the idea. And we hear this stuff, right? You've heard this. Oh, count it all joy when you fall into trials. Oh, it's working for your good. True. All very true. I believe all of that. I live on that. But something about the tangible visualization of a controlled burn, of looking at these reports on CNN and seeing everything being what seems to be total destruction,
Mhm.
and you just put a little bit more on it and it controls it. What?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what you just so super Gracie,
Gracie.
super excited, and to your point, um, like God's grace is beyond my understanding.
Oh,
It's
yes.
so big, it's beyond my understanding. However, I become intimately engaged with it when I
Hmm.
can put some human perspective to it.
Hmm.
So it is super exciting because it's like, yes, this is a way that see grace operate, and it's something tangible, and it's something that I can even reference
Hmm.
back to. So that is like, I mean, that's the passion of just bearing witness to God's grace, of talking about this topic. And so, oh, I had something else and it left. However, I can keep going.
Pivot.
So it's planned, it's to maintain the health of the
Mhm.
forest.
Yeah.
So not only is it to maintain often, it doesn't only maintain my health,
Mhm.
but often when you were talking about that, it's the health of the forest.
Mhm.
So, sometimes a fire, like a raging fire, what it feels like is when uh maybe somebody in your life falls away
Mhm.
or you lose them in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean it's through death. It doesn't mean friendships fall away. Uh, and it's not, um, like you said, it's for the greater good,
Mhm.
but it's to maintain the health of the whole.
To maintain the health.
And I can't see the whole.
Right.
I can only see my part and what I'm hurting in and what I don't like that's happening.
Mhm.
And so to be reminded that, first of all, what I see as a fire in my life may be a prescribed burn.
Yeah.
And what happens when I can, like, live and make decisions from that perspective?
What happens if I can look at this and say, this might be intentional?
Mhm.
And if you continue reading the definition, there's a lot of stuff out there. If you Google it, it also says for restoration. So, what? I'm getting this fire in my life intentionally at this appointed time to restore me? How is that possible? That's mind blowing to me. Mind blowing, but so excited about that. I don't know about you, but I got some fires. You got some fires? You got any fires going on
I
here?
got a couple fires brewing.
Got a
Yes,
couple
I do.
fires?
I got a rager back here. Yeah. Yeah. I don't uh yes. Yes, I have some fires. And uh and I can't see how this is gonna maintain the health of the forest.
Cause we're in the weeds, we're in the trees. We can't
Exactly.
see it.
Exactly. Exactly. However, when I can come from the perspective of this is here at this time for a reason I don't know, except now I have this image of, okay, this is when I lean on God and rely on God and allow his grace to uh, just in, bring a little bit more prescribed burn to the
Mm-hmm.
fire, then, uh, I mean, that's that's what can shift it so that it is for the greater good, that there can be restoration in it. Because if it's just me doing it on my own accord, my decisions, my responses to that fire are probably not gonna be very graceful,
Mm-hmm.
and I might be throwing kerosene on the very fire
Right.
that grace is trying to, control.
Control. So that it doesn't pose a threat.
Mhm.
What it makes me wonder, and I'm completely talking spiritually now, not about the physicality of a burn, but do you think it's possible for every burn, every fire in our life to be a controlled burn, a prescribed burn?
I do. It's a great question. I absolutely do.
How do we get there?
That is a good question. Uh-huh. I mean, the first thing is to be aware that it's possible,
Right.
because and really the second thing for me, because this is a whole new question and I love it. The second thing would to I could reflect back on these burns in my life, and I can see God's handprints all over it.
Hmm.
So whether or not I was with the idea that there was a prescribed burn going on, it still happened.
It was intentional and prescribed the entire time.
Mhm.
So if we can jump on board with knowing that,
Get on the people mover.
get on the people mover, experience the grace, feel the love, feel the hand of God over our life, and say, this is for an appointed time for me to protect the forest, not just me. This is bigger than me, and it will not pose a threat to me. And I just feel like if we went into the fire with that mentality, things would feel a little bit different. It's still going to be hot. It's still going to, and I'm going to get real churchy here for a second. I feel pretty confident that being on the cross hurt Jesus.
I'm
It
gonna
was
agree
painful.
with you. Yeah.
I don't think it felt good,
Uh-uh.
but he went into it knowing what was on the other side. I'm going to get up. This is going to change the world. This is to maintain the health of the forest. This is to save humanity. This is for something much, much bigger.
And even in the process, he doubted very
Yeah,
briefly.
yeah, yeah. And hey, if I don't have to do this, take it
I'm
away.
out. Yeah.
If there's another way. But while I'm up here, let me look out for this guy over here. He never stopped the work. And understood that it was a much bigger assignment at play. And I challenge myself often to be mindful that number one, God isn't calling us to do something that he hasn't himself had to do with his son. So this isn't foreign territory. Number two, that if I get too bogged down in the heat, to remind myself that there's another side of this. And even if I can't see it, if I can activate just a little bit of faith, if I can activate, hey, well, Carrie went through this, I can go through it too because I'm competitive. You can do it, I can do it. You know, if I could just activate a little bit of grace, if I can open my eyes just a little bit, I just feel like that walk through that fire would be different. And I challenge myself to, in the middle of those moments, whenever it occurs, for me, my darkest times and my most light times, like this, they both come at the same time. You have to be careful. Coming about between 6 in the morning and 7 in the morning. And
Hmm.
it's a very crystal clear time for me. I can hear very clearly and I can see very clearly. And I'm usually not even fully awake, which probably is why it works, because I'm not getting in the way. But during that time, if I could take that moment I have between 6 and 7 and apply it to the rest of the day, I think so many things would seem controlled, prescribed. I would feel protected, but it ain't easy. All that to say, it ain't easy.
It's simple, but it ain't
It ain't
easy.
easy because life is life.
No, and to your point, it doesn't mean that it's not gonna hurt. This
Mhm,
isn't like, let's put a big pink cloud over it and just la 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 la. That's not what I'm saying, and it's not what we're saying.
mhm,
It can hurt, it can be scary, it can be all these things, and there's a just a small shift in perspective
mhm,
of, you know, what's the bigger picture here?
mhm,
And wow, there's something else at work that isn't me. That really, uh, I don't know about you, but God seems to be pretty consistent.
mhm,
Like, he doesn't make exceptions or change the rules or, you know, kinda do for one and not for the other. So if if there can be a controlled burn, then there can always be a controlled burn.
mhm. And there will be a control restoring. The restoration will be controlled. And that to me is so encouraging.
It is encouraging.
What comes to mind for you when you think like when you think about your own life? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think what was a controlled burn in my life? What could have been a controlled burn?
Oh, so many.
Give us one.
Um, I mean, it's so easy to think of the real big fires, so
Mhm,
we could have a long conversation here about this controlled burn. Um, I ran my own life for a long time. I did. I was very defiant, just resistant, who knows? I thought it was for me to do. And so, um, I put myself in situations that were not optimal for the health of the tree or the
mhm.
forest.
The forest.
Really, really. I mean, nobody was winning here. Although and uh it felt like my life was over. It felt like I was going to lose everything. It felt like I was being abandoned by God and the world and the everything. That's what it felt like. And it continued to get more feels around that until like I said, I give. I give. I can't it was like trying to gather all this stuff around me. It was just constant, like, I have to do it, and, when I could say, "I give," it's okay if it all goes. It's okay. It's almost like, "Okay, fire, you got it."
Mhm,
Then, like, people showed up, and things showed up, and circumstances happened, and all these things that I could have never orchestrated. I could have never even imagined some of them to, like, bring the fire down and then to walk me out of the ashes.
mm. That's beautiful. You had to surrender.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And I really wanted to think of a simple one, but I can only go with what comes.
You gotta
So,
go with what comes to you.
how about you, Ebony? You give me an example.
I wanna think of a simple one too, but there's always one that's present, ever present in my mind, the last year going through the stomach cancer situation, and that felt like a major burn. That felt like a huge, uncontrolled burn. And I was talking with someone recently, I don't remember if it was you or someone else, somebody deep and profound. And I, and I was talking about,
Someone
how
else.
could have been you, I don't know. Talking about how horrible it was, but in the same breath, talking about this huge problem that I just could not see around or see past, ended up healing me in so many ways. It restored me. It and it's hard. It's even hard now for me to say it that may have been prescribed. That
Mhm.
burn could have been prescribed for the overall health of my forest. I was so focused on my stomach, and God wanted to heal my whole being, my mind, my spirit, my heart, my spirituality, my relationships, my the way I approach him, the way I reverence him. He wanted to do a big work, and I was just so focused right here. And this person I was talking to said, "Well, cancer wasn't the problem, cancer was the answer." And I thought, "Whoa, cancer was the answer." Now, this is personal. I'm not insinuating that everybody who's going through a cancer struggle or battle had the same experience, because I've been through it more than once, and it wasn't my same experience as last time. It's been different each time. But this particular time, in hindsight, and not just in hindsight, there were key moments along the way where I knew God is in this. His hand is in this. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I am hot as hell. This heat is getting to me, but he's in this. And on this side of it, I can see the restoration. I could see that it was the answer to so many things that I didn't even know how to question. Um, it was hot, but it never posed a true threat to me. I perceived a threat along the way. I was scared. I was frightened because it was closing in, and it felt very close and near. But when I think of a controlled burn, that was a very much a controlled burn. And it had to happen at that time, because the very thing they were proposing to fix the problem, answer problem, um, had been proposed 2 years before, and I was adamantly opposed, adamantly. So it had to be at that time to restore the health and a place where he positioned me. And I don't know if I've ever thought of it as control burning until this moment, but that was absolutely okay. And it's still happening.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a one and done. The thing with control burning is you have to do it. It has to happen on a regular basis. Um, so that I feel like I'm going to cry. It was just really, really, really special to know that one of the most painful things that I went through in my life was also one of the most restoring. And it's given me a boldness.
That's beautiful. I mean, I don't have a word, just like a yes. Maybe that's the word. Yeah.
And it increases your faith. To back to what you said about, the question we asked about how did you make every burner burn, control burn. I think you have to you got to put a little face charcoal on it. You got to activate that thing. You got to say, hey, based on the last time you prescribed this crap, and it restored me, and I came out a little cleaner, and I didn't smell like smoke. I didn't smell like smoke when I came out of the fire. I'm going to lean on the fact that you're going to do it again.
Yes.
You can do it
Yes.
again.
Yes.
And because if you did it that time, you can do it again. And now I'm going to walk through it a little bit braver, a little bit more courage. And I'm going to encourage you, and whoever else, that if he did it for me, because to your point, he has no respect to persons. He can do it for everybody. He doesn't play favorites. And then the forest becomes a much bigger community. It's so much bigger than me. It's this community of listeners and this audience, and it's everyone who needs to know and hear that it can be prescribed, and he'll protect you, and it's at an appointed time. So I'm rambling now.
I love it. I gotta close this. Hold, please.
Sure thing.
Some people call it the sunlight of the spirit. I'm going with it. Uh, uh, yes to everything you said, and it's encouraging. It was an encouragement that I just heard for myself, and hopefully for everybody. Whenever I utter the words "not again,"
Mhm.
I'm gonna have a different perspective, because it's not a punishment. I didn't do it wrong.
Mm-mm.
It's another prescribed burn. They're on a schedule.
They're
I
on a
mean, they're not on
schedule.
my schedule. They're not on my schedule. They are
Correct.
definitely not on my schedule, but they are on a schedule. And if I can hold any crisis
Mm-hmm.
or fire with a little bit of faith, then and remembering that there's restoration on the other side, uh, I think I think that's gonna help.
I think so too. I think so too. I'm going to write a letter to National Geographic and say, thank you so much for this definition. It really helped us today. Uh,
Absolutely. I wanna create a little, the charcoal lighter fluid
yeah.
that just says faith on it or grace. Think we could market that?
Hey,
Sorry.
why not? Why
Oh
not?
my
Why
goodness.
not? We oftentimes reference, songs we like or different things. There's a song, Refiner, by Maverick City, and it
Mhm.
talks about I want to burn for you. Um, wow. Talk about a
Yeah.
controlled burn.
Yes. I love that song. We will post it in here. We'll
Yeah,
post a link
absolutely.
to it in this one.
Absolutely. Burn me beautiful, burn me lovely. Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful song. Now I'm gonna think about controlled burns every time I listen to that song. But
Absolutely.
oh,
I
this is
love it.
fun. This is cool.
This is cool. Anything else?
I think we've covered it, and you know, we don't pretend to have all the answers. We're talking from our point of view, our perspective, our experiences. But I think this might be one that a lot of people can relate to. We've all been through a fire,
Mhm.
and we've all had that moment when the fire feels like it's getting hotter, and more and more and more is coming, and you're like, oh my god, this. Like when it rains, it pours, but when it
Yeah,
burns, it burns.
yeah.
Okay,
Like,
um,
really? Really? Come on.
getting kind of uncomfortable. Just to remind ourselves, I know I'm going to do it. I'm challenging myself to do this. That this could be prescribed, and no weapon formed against me shall prosper. It's going to form, but it's not going to prosper. It's not going to pose a threat to me.
Mhm.
And if you can't see that or feel that, activate the faith. Put a little faith on it, and then see how it works. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. Like this encouraged me. Not that life's about me, but it encouraged me. Did it encourage you?
It did. It did encourage me. It did encourage me. And you wrap these up so lovely, Ebony. I appreciate that. And the other thing that I would add is when you're in that place, when you're in that fire, and now you're going with, okay, this is prescribed and putting a little faith on it, and it's still really hard. Find somebody who can share it with you.
Yeah.
Reach out. If you want to reach out to us,
Hmm.
you're more than welcome. Reach out to a friend and say, this may be prescribed, but it hurts.
Hmm.
Like, you do not have to do it alone.
That is so true. I just had a last thought. I mentioned my burn was my situation with the cancer and the ultimate surgery to remove the entire stomach. That surgery was awful. But I went into it knowing that it was literally prescribed. I knew it was going to be the worst week of my life, but it was prescribed. And the restoration that physically came, the breaking that had to happen, the burn that had to happen in my flesh on my physical body, that's a very tangible example of this, not the whole situation, just that the surgery prescribed, appointed time, the restoration that came out of that, the control that came out of that, the everything, the forest, all the healing that came out of that. That's enough for me to be sold into this whole idea of control burn for the rest of my life. So find that thing, that one thing that it had to be God. And you weren't tricked. You didn't see it in hindsight. You knew in that moment, I have to go through this. I have to experience this. And on the other side, there will be restoration. There wasn't a question. You weren't hoping for it. You knew without a shadow of a doubt there will be restoration on the other side of this. And lean on those moments. Lean on those moments when you're feeling low and you're feeling like it's getting a little too hot in this kitchen. Because I lean on that. I lean on that a lot, and it helps me. And we all have our own story, our own, fill in the blank for what you knew was prescribed.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew it was going to hurt like hell.
Yeah.
So that's all I got, kid.
Awesome. Awesome. Are we ready? Are we ready for a grace out?
I think so. I
Okay.
think so. Grace is
Well,
all over this today.
I know. Thank you, everybody who joined and stuck with us through controlled burns. And we'd love to hear from you. And
Absolutely.
until next time,
Grace out.
Grace out.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know. We love to hear from you, and share it with a friend. Also, please be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. We hope you're leaving with another pointer to grace, a new perspective that will light it up in your own life. Until next time, be well, be bold, be kind to yourself, and be on the lookout.